Hello, and welcome to Wicked Wednesday with the Collective. Tonight we're going to read The Girl Without Hands by the Brothers Grimm. A certain miller had little by little fallen into poverty, and he had nothing left but his mill and a large apple tree that stood behind it. Once when he had gone into the forest to fetch wood, an old man stepped up to him, whom he had never seen before, and said, "Why do you plague yourself with cutting wood? I will make you rich, if you will promise me what is standing behind your mill." "What can that be but my apple tree?" thought the miller, and said, "Yes," and he gave a written promise to the stranger. He, however, laughed mockingly and said, "When 3 years have passed, I will come and carry away what belongs to me." And then he went. When the miller got home, his wife came to meet him and said, "Tell me, miller, from whence comes this sudden wealth into our house? All at once every box and chest is filled. No one brought it in, and I know not how it happened." He answered, "It comes from a stranger who met me in the forest and promised me great treasure. I in return have promised him what stands behind the mill. We can very well give him the big apple tree for it." "Ah, husband," said the terrified wife, "that must have been the devil. He did not mean the apple tree, but our daughter, who is standing behind the mill sweeping the yard." The miller's daughter was a beautiful, pious girl, and she lived through the 3 years in the fear of God and without sin. When therefore the time was over, and the day came when the devil was to fetch her, she washed herself clean and made a circle round herself with chalk. The devil appeared very early, but he could not come near to her. Angrily he said to the miller, "Take all water away from her, that she may no longer be able to wash herself, for otherwise I have no power over her." The miller was afraid, and did so. The next morning the devil came again, but she had wept on her hands, and they were absolutely clean. Again he could not get near her, and he furiously said to the miller, "Chop her hands off, or else I have no power over her." The miller was terrified and answered, "How could I chop off my own child's hands?" Then the devil threatened him and said, "If you do not do it, you are mine, and I will take you yourself." The father became alarmed and promised to obey him, so he went to the girl and said, "My child, if I do not chop off both your hands, the devil will carry me away, and in my terror I have promised to do it. Help me in my need, and forgive me the harm I do you." She replied, "Dear father, do with me what you will. I am your child." Thereupon she laid down both her hands and let them be cut off. The devil came for the third time, but she had wept so long and so much on the stumps that after all they were absolutely clean. Then he had to give in, and lost all right over her. The miller said to her, "I have by means of you received such great wealth that I will keep you most handsomely as long as you live." But she replied, "Here I cannot stay. I will go forth. Compassionate people will give me as much as I need." Thereupon she caused her maimed arms to be bound to her back, and by sunrise she set out on her way, and she walked the whole day until night fell. Then she came to a royal garden, and by the shimmering of the moon she saw that trees covered with beautiful fruits grew in it, but she could not enter, for it was surrounded by water. And as she had walked the whole day and not eaten one mouthful, and hunger tormented her, she thought, "Ah, if I were but inside, then I might eat of the fruit, else I might die of hunger." Then she knelt down and prayed to God, and suddenly an angel came toward her, who made a dam in the water, so that the moat became dry, and she could walk through it. And now she went into the garden, and the angel went with her. She saw a tree covered with beautiful pears, but they were all counted. To still her hunger, she ate one with her mouth from the tree, but no more. The gardener was watching, but as the angel was standing by, he was afraid and thought the maiden was a spirit, and was silent. Neither did he dare to cry out or to speak to the spirit. When she had eaten the pear, she was satisfied and went and concealed herself among the bushes. The king to whom the garden belonged came down to it next morning, counted, and saw that one of the pears was missing. He asked the gardener what had become of it, as it was not lying beneath the tree but was gone. Then answered the gardener, "Last night a spirit came in who had no hands and ate off one of the pears with its mouth." The king said, "How did the spirit get over the water, and where did it go after it had eaten the pear?" The gardener answered, "Someone came in a snow-white garment from heaven who made a dam and kept back the water, that the spirit might walk through the moat. And as it must have been an angel, I was afraid and asked no questions and did not cry out. When the spirit had eaten the pear, it went back again." The king said, "If it be as you say, I will watch with you tonight." When it grew dark, the king came into the garden and brought a priest with him who was to speak to the spirit. All three seated themselves beneath the tree and watched. At midnight, the maiden came creeping out of the thicket, went to the tree, and again ate one pear off it with her mouth. And beside her stood the angel in white garments. Then the priest went out to them and said, "Do you come from heaven or from earth? Are you a spirit or a human being?" She replied, "I am no spirit, but a poor mortal, deserted by all but God." The king said, "If you are forsaken by all the world, yet will I not forsake you." He took her with him into his royal palace, and as she was so beautiful and pious, he loved her with all of his heart, and had silver hands made for her, and took her to wife. After a year, the king had to go on a journey, so he commended his young queen to the care of his mother, and said, "If she is brought to childbed, take care of her, nurse her well, and tell me of it at once in a letter." She gave birth to a fine boy, so the old mother made haste to write and announce the joyful news to the king. But the messenger rested by a brook on the way, and as he was fatigued by the great distance, he fell asleep. Then came the devil, who was always seeking to harm the pious queen, and exchanged the letter for another, in which was written that the queen had brought a deformed child into the world. When the king read the letter, he was shocked and much troubled, but he wrote in answer that they were to take great care of the queen and nurse her well until his arrival. The messenger went back with the letter, but rested at the same place, and again fell asleep. Then came the devil once more, and put a different letter in his pocket, in which it was written that they were to kill the queen and her child. The old mother was terribly shocked when she received the letter and could not believe it. She wrote back again to the king, but received no other answer, because each time the devil substituted a false letter. And in the last letter it was also written that she was to preserve the queen's tongue and eyes as a token. But the old mother wept to think such an innocent blood was to be shed, and had a deer brought by night, and cut out her tongue and eyes, and kept them. Then said she to the queen, "I cannot have you killed as the king commands, but here you may stay no longer. Go forth into the wide world with your child, and never come here again." The queen tied the child on her back and went away with eyes full of tears. She came into a great wild forest, and then she fell on her knees and prayed. An angel again appeared to her and led her to a little house, on which was a sign with the words, "Here all dwell free." A snow-white maiden came out of the little house and said, "Welcome, Lady Queen," and conducted her inside. Then she unbound the little boy from her back, held him to her breast that he might feed, and lay him in a beautifully made little bed. The queen stayed 7 years in the little house and was well cared for, and because of her piety, her hands that had been cut off grew once more. At last the king came home from his journey, and his first wish was to see his wife and the child. Then his aged mother began to weep and said, "You wicked man! Why did you write to me that I was to take those 2 innocent lives?" She showed him the 2 letters which the devil had forged, and then continued, "I did as you bade me," and she showed the tokens, the tongue and eyes. Then the king began to weep for his poor wife and his little son, so much more bitterly than she was doing that the aged mother had compassion on him and said, "Be at peace, she still lives. I secretly caused a deer to be killed and took these tokens from it. But I bound the child to your wife's back and bade her to go forth into the wide world and made her promise never to come back here again because you were so angry with her." Spoke the king, "I will go as far as the sky is blue, and I will neither eat nor drink until I have found again my dear wife and my child, if in the meantime they have not been killed or died of hunger." Thereupon the king traveled about for 7 long years, and sought her in every cleft of the rocks and in every cave. But he found her not, and thought she had died of want. During the whole of this time he neither ate nor drank, but God supported him. At length he came into a great forest, and found therein the little house whose sign was, "Here all dwell free." Then forth came the white maiden, took him by the hand, led him in, and said, "Welcome, Lord King." The angel offered him meat and drink, but he did not take anything, and only wished to rest a little. Then he lay down to sleep. Thereupon the angel went into the chamber where the queen sat with her son, and said to her, "Go out with your child, your husband has come." Seeing them, the king rose and asked who they were. Then said she, "I am your wife, and that is your son, Sorrowful." But he saw her living hands and said, "My wife had silver hands." She answered him, "The good God has caused my natural hands to grow again." Thereupon the angel brought forth the silver hands and showed them to him. The king then knew for a certainty that it was his dear wife and his dear child, and he kissed them and was glad, and said, "A heavy stone is fallen off my heart." They went home to the king's aged mother, and there were great rejoicings everywhere. The king and queen were married again, and lived contentedly to their happy end.